Good day everyone and welcome to a new update of Crypto Michael. Today we're going to discuss some altcoins, as altcoins have been doing relatively well, and we're essentially starting off with Tezos, as Tezos is generally moving alongside with Chainlink, but recently it has been lagging behind heavily. First, if you like my content, please subscribe to the channel or like beneath. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram, as there's content coming on that platform as well. So, as we've seen, Chainlink has been doing absolutely crazy, as it has been breaking out heavily in the recent days. And it looks to be the case that Tezos is ready to follow suit. So what can we define? How can we define targets? What are probably targets for this rally? We can do that through Fibonacci Extension. And what is essential in this case is I've just put up a clean chart so we can chart through this clean, and just from the basics is that we're constantly just still flipping levels, which is essentially needed if you want to sustain upwards continuation. So in this case you can see that the block we have to hold is relatively wide, which is between 305 to 325. A test of the previous high for support seems very likely if you want to see continuation, through which 333 is the level that you want to see as potential support in this case. So generally what you might be expecting is that we can see sideways continuation, through which the 336 level should be holding. Then the next part is how to define any target based on the previous movements. Well, essentially you can make the target by taking the high of the previous high and taking the low of the previous low, which in this case is the cycle high, cycle low from the beginning of this year, and then we can define a target which is 585 for the next rally. Then also, how can you define targets based on smaller time frame movements? Well, essentially you can do this exact same thing on the smaller movements, in which you can take the high and the previous low, which in this case is 264 and 334, defining a target, and we can see that we've hit the target at 377, and we've got one for the next wave, which is 447. Then we can also do it on this previous high and previous low, which is essentially this wave, and then we can define a target from $4 and $5. So essentially, if Tezos holds the 333, 336 level, we can see a sustainable continuation in which a target of $5 to $6 is the next target for Tezos. Then we also have the Btc chart, in which we can see that we are still compressing. Essentially what we had to hold is what we held, which is the previous support block and the previous high, which essentially held. Now we can also see that we are above the 100-day and 200-day MA, through which we can also conclude that we have to hold above the 2900 to 2800 sats level. This green zone should be the case that we should be holding. If we do hold that, it seems very likely that we're going to break through this trend, as currently we are in a resistance zone, but this flip and next compression would most likely bring us towards new price discovery and a new high, and then we can also make the target zones, which is essentially 5100 sats as the first massive target zone for Tezos, if it starts to make a new trend, and you can compare this wave or this tick with any of these movements or any of these moves, in which we just structure a new higher low in general. Then, as we have been discussing this one relatively much recently, is Sealer, which essentially is still following the plan and just flipping levels. We can see on the USD chart that we have basically flipped every previous resistance for support, and essentially what you want to see is that the exact same occurrence is here in this range between 0.8 cents to 1 cent. That has to hold, and then we can continue rallying towards the next resistance zones, which is essentially 1.6, and the range high is around 2 cents. So I think Sealer is just waking up, and if we check the Btc chart, we can essentially see the exact same figure. This is an older TA I did, but we had the heavy support at 50 sats. It held. We are here seeing the MAs compressing, which is also a bullish sign, as we are above the 100-day and 200-day MA, and we're currently trying to break through this resistance zone and break further up. Resistance zone is hit. The next resistance zone above this level is essentially the 200 level and essentially the 350 level. So if we get a drop down and we hold the previous high between 76 to 80 sets, that's a little bit too wide. 76 to 80 sets, we are fine. What's the level that we should be holding in general for Cedar? That's the 66 level. So any drop down and compression and we get a new higher low, then we are looking for a new higher high, and the new higher high would most likely bring us towards 150 or 200 sets, as then we get the acceleration, and that acceleration we've also seen on Perlin, through which we get expansion upwards. Heavy drop down on Perlin today. Huh. Then the next coin that I want to discuss is Elrond, which is, I have to put up a different chart, which essentially is giving us a figure of how we are doing during sideways notions. In this case we can see that resistance has been hit, and then usually when resistance gets hit we test the previous levels, could not sustain support at 190 sets, so it started to drop towards the 181 sets level. Essentially what you now want to see is that the previous low, which in this case is the level between 189 to 190 sets, flipped support. So then we can see a further continuation. Then we are targeting 212, and then the next resistance zone would most likely bring us towards 240 to 260 sets, which essentially would be a new rally and a new strength on Elrond in this bull market as we are having right now. So then final two coins that I want to discuss is essentially one chain. It's waking up, still in a heavy accumulation range here, and still showing the 100 day and 200 day MA, but right now it's the first time we are really flipping the 100 day and 200 day MA. We are also testing the range high, through which it seems likely that we're going to compress a little bit in this case and in this area. Flip the 2800 sets level for support. If we check the 4-hour time frame, we can see a more clear level. Yes, that's the 2100 level. Get compression going, and then the next real rally would most likely bring us towards 5800 and maybe even 8000 satoshis. Then the final one that I'm going to do on this small update that I'm having here, we have discussed algo yesterday and we have seen the test we wanted to see, and essentially this chart is a copy paste of the chart that we are seeing on one chain. It's eager to wake up, and once it starts to wake up, the first target is 7500 sets. 57. So that's my small update for today. I'll be back tomorrow with a few more updates and the live stream, and I wish you a wonderful day and stay tuned.